Welcome to our daily news program broadcast to you live here on Canal Algerie. Coming up next. The President of the Republic chairs a working meeting focused on free trade zones, particularly those between Tindouf and Mauritania. The President of the Republic reiterates the government's priorities for measures and policies during a statement read on his behalf at marking the 4th anniversary of the Republic's Mediator Authority. The Army General Said Shingriha reiterates a full readiness to give a new dynamic to military cooperation between Algeria and Rwanda, thus facing up common security challenges during his discussions with his Rwandan counterpart. Another resolution on Palestine was thwarted at the UN Security Council. Algeria, which proposed the resolution, promises to continue efforts for a ceasefire in Gaza. The International Court of Justice continues its hearings, where Algeria calls for enforcement of laws ending the occupation by the Zionist entity. Welcome again. Today's beginning is with the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, who chaired a working meeting devoted to free trade zones, notably those located between Tindouf and Mauritania. And a national seminar on the 4th anniversary of the establishment of the Republic's Mediator Authority, organized at the National School of Administration. The event was held under the theme, The Republic's Mediator, an Asset in the Service of the Citizen. The proceedings took place in the presence of several government members and representatives of constitutional bodies and public institutions. The ceremony was marked by the President's address, read by the Republic's Mediator, Majid Amour. The head of state emphasized that this meeting aims to deepen reflection, broaden dialogue and consultation on the public service that the administration and public structures must provide and improve. He affirmed that serving the citizen should be the fundamental objective towards which the efforts of the state, its constitutions and its bodies converge. Any efforts or approach contributing to the building of a new Algeria based on sound foundations must be based on listening to the citizen and meeting the aspirations of the Algerian people.
The body of the Mediator of the Republic is placed under the direct supervision of the Presidency of the Republic to be an important support in the realization of this noble mission and to be at the service of the citizen. The body of the Mediator of the Republic, alongside other consultative bodies such as the Higher Youth Council and the National Observatory of Civil Society, has a growing role in establishing a culture of listening, transmission of concerns, eradication of bureaucratic obstacles, and to convey the proposals and concerns of the various sectors of society to the concerned public authorities, who must monitor them and take charge of them. I would like to take this opportunity to salute the efforts made by the executives and members of the bodies mentioned, and I call for greater diligence, a spirit of initiative, and the opening of horizons towards new and more flexible relationships which contribute the creation of bridges of cooperation, so that the body of the Mediator of the Republic and other national bodies have this interactive and open vision in the service of the citizen, because serving the citizen is the reason for its existence.
To cooperation now, the President of the National People's Assembly, Ibrahim Boughali, was received today by the King of Jordan, Abdullah Athani. And during the meeting, King Abdullah Athani hailed the deeply rooted relations existing between Algeria and Jordan, as well as the two countries' commitment to boost cooperation in all fields, notably on the parliamentary level. King Abdullah Athani reiterated his country's support for Algeria as a non-permanent member in the Security Council for what benefits Arab causes, at their heart the Palestinian cause. To military cooperation, the Army General Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, Said Shingeriha, continues his official visit to the Republic of Rwanda on the invitation of his Rwandan counterpart, Mubarak Muganga. He was welcomed at the Rwandan Ministry of Defense by the Minister of Defense, Juvenal Mariza Munda. Rani al-Bahri with the details.
At the entrance of the general headquarters of the Ministry of Defense in the capital Kigali, the Army General Said Shingeriha, Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, was received by the Rwandan Chief of Staff, Army General Mubarak Muganga. Where formation of the National Guard were displayed and military ceremonies were performed. After that, the Army General Said Shingeriha was received by Rwandan Defense Minister Juvenal Mariza Munda, where they held talks during which they reviewed the course of military cooperation between the armies of the two countries, and at the end, symbolic gifts were exchanged. After that, the Army General had his first bilateral meeting with his Rwandan counterpart, Army General Mubarak Muganga, where the meeting expanded with the presence of delegations of the two countries, during which the two parties chaired talks that dealt with bilateral military cooperation and ways to enhance it in the future in a way that is consistent with the ambitions of the leadership of the two countries and their desire to expand areas of coordination in fields of common interest. On this occasion, the Army General delivered a speech in which he renewed his appreciation and gratitude for the warm welcome and generous hospitality for him and his accompanying delegation, stressing that the visit is a clear indicator of the ambitions of the higher authorities of the two countries in order to send a new dynamic to the mechanism of military cooperation between the two armies to exchange points of views on issues of common interest. He also added that this visit is considered an important stage in the consultation effort between the two institutions to improve relations and consolidate military cooperation to live up to the aspirations of the leaderships of the two countries and to allow the security challenges witnessed by the African continent to be confronted with the necessary effectiveness. For his part, the Army General Mubarak Muganga praised the sincere will of the Algerian side to strengthen bilateral military relations in line with the ambitions of the two countries in sending bonds of fruitful cooperation to both sides. He also stressed that the People's National Army is truly one of the most respected and effective military forces on Africa and in the world, adding that the Rwandan Defense Forces are looking forward to benefit from the capabilities of the National People's Army and from its experience and expertise. At the end of this meeting, the two parties exchanged symbolic gifts.
And regarding Algeria's advocacy on the Palestinian issue at the UN Security Council through the draft resolution submitted regarding the situation in Palestine, which calls for an immediate ceasefire of the aggression against Gaza, Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ammar Ben Jama, confirmed that Algeria will not stop until the Council bears its full responsibilities. Najih Tayyar has the details.
Around this table, where the nation's issues are discussed, Algeria, as always, supports the just cause of Gaza and stands for the end of the Zionist genocide on the Palestinian people. That's the worst that the world has ever witnessed.
إن الوضع الحالي يفرض على الجميع
The current situation obliges everyone, as the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, reaffirms, to work on upholding the principles of the United Nations and providing the necessary protection to the Palestinian people and to put an end to this historical injustice. Our message today is that the international community should respond to the demands of the aggressions targeting Palestinians and, through demanding the immediate ceasefire, and who is hindering this should review his policies, because the wrong decisions today will result violence and instability in our regions and the world tomorrow. Algeria's efforts and demands for a humanitarian decision and action towards Palestine unsurprisingly convinced 13 countries around the table, including countries who had a different opinion. But as expected, the United States of America used the veto right, allowing the Zionist entity to continue its genocide against Gaza.
أقول للجميع أننا
We will bury our martyrs this evening in Rafah, in Gaza, in all Palestine, and that Algeria will return on behalf of the Arab world, on behalf of the Muslim world, and on behalf of all the free people, with the souls of thousands of innocents, which the Zionist occupier killed with no punishment.
ومعنا أرواح الآلاف من الأبرياء التي أزهقها المحتل الإسرائيلي من دون حساب ولا عقاب.
Algeria will return with its firm demand and will to stop the bloodshed of the Palestinians and to ask this council to resume its full responsibility and decide the ceasefire.
During the same day, at the International Court of Justice, Algeria calls for the Zionist entity to respect the laws putting an end to the occupation. It was during the hearings initiated by the body on the legal consequences of the policies and practices of the Zionist entity in occupied Palestine. More details with Rania Al-Bahri.
These are historic hearings which are being held at the International Court of Justice in The Hague since this morning on the Zionist occupation. In fact, 52 countries, Algeria and 3 international organizations are taking part, thus making a record participation for the International Court of Justice since its foundation in 1946.
Que l'Algérie a toujours été au rendez-vous quand il s'agit d'appuyer.
Algeria has always been there when it comes to supporting the Palestinian cause and being alongside the Palestinian people. We are doing it today within this prestigious building of the highest judicial body of the United Nations, as we are going to do this afternoon in the Security Council within the framework of the Algerian draft resolution, which calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, therefore emphasizing once again that Algeria doesn't miss any opportunity to demonstrate its unconditional support for the Palestinian cause. In fact, on December 31, 2022, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution asking the ICC for an advisory opinion, non-binding, on the legal consequences arising from a policy and practices of the Zionist entity in the occupied territories, the oral hearings being in the third phase of this legal process. Algeria highlighted major ideas in which the occupation cannot fail to have consequences on the status of the occupied Palestinian territories, almost as an inevitable consequences as a result of this occupation. A legal forum that Algeria has seized to denounce the exception of impunity against the Zionist entity for 3/4 of a century. We say that the prolonged occupation has become a permanent occupation, and it is as a de facto annexation of the Palestinian territories, the message that Algeria wanted to send: impunity cannot continue. The occupying power has always been opposed to any action which would remind it that there is right and justice. The large number of states which testify and which participate in this procedure proves that the occupying power is wrong. A procedure which lasts for 6 days and which was brought by South Africa to the International Court of Justice to denounce the genocidal acts perpetrated against Palestinians.
While the diplomatic way seems blocked, the situation in Gaza is getting worse every day. In addition to the Zionist bombings and the daily massacres, the Palestinians are threatened by famine and diseases. Yassine Hamdi with the full details.
More than 15 massacres were committed by the Zionist occupation army during the last hours, targeting houses, neighborhoods, and gatherings of Palestinian civilians nearby the sea in Khan Yunis. These attacks killed more than 100 Palestinians and injured 145 others, thus increasing the number of martyrs to 29,000 and the number of wounded to 69,000. According to the latest statistics, the Zionist entity bombed Gaza with more than 66,000 tons of explosives and destroyed more than 70,000 residential units. 290,000 others were partially destroyed. The humanitarian situation remains catastrophic. Almost 1.5 million of Palestinians are piling up in Rafah, threatened by a land operation of the Zionist army, while the Security Council of the United Nations remains powerless regarding a possible ceasefire. The international community is worried about the perspective of an assault on Rafah. 26 of the 27 countries of the European Union called for an immediate humanitarian break, but the hopes for a ceasefire are decreasing. Despite all the international calls, the Zionist entity keeps blocking the way of the humanitarian aid that enters sparingly the besieged Gaza Strip. Zionist protesters have even blocked the access to aid trucks coming from Egypt to Rafah. After more than 20 weeks of war, the reports of the humanitarian organizations on the situation of Gaza are alarming. 9 out of 10 children are sick. According to UNICEF, food and water have become extremely rare in the Palestinian territory, and 90% of children are suffering from infectious diseases. The sufferings of the Palestinians are becoming apocalyptic.
And to make matters worse, the United Nations World Food Programme announced on Tuesday that it is once again suspending aid distribution in the northern Gaza Strip, which is facing chaos and violence. The WFP had already suspended food aid and shipments to this devastated area 3 weeks ago following a Zionist strike on a truck belonging to another UN agency. And on Tuesday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, met with the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan, Alibag Bayakev, who was visiting Algeria for the second session of political consultations between the two countries. During the meeting, the two parties held the dynamic relations between Algeria and Kazakhstan following President Tebboun's decision to open an Algerian embassy in Astana in 2022. They also welcomed the Kazakh authorities' intention to open soon an embassy in Algeria. The meeting further allowed both sides to discuss ways and means to promote bilateral cooperation via high-level visits, the establishment of a joint commission, and the enrichment of bilateral legal framework. Commissioned by the President of the Republic, the Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, on a working visit to the Bolivian Republic of Venezuela. He was received yesterday in Caracas by the Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, to whom he delivered a handwritten letter from President Abdelmajid Tebboune. The discussions focused on strengthening bilateral relations, particularly in the energy sector. Minister Arqab outlined Algeria's preparations for the 7th summit of the Forum of Heads of State and Government for Gas Exporting Countries. He emphasized the head of state's reliance on Venezuela's effective contribution to the summit in supporting solidarity among foreign members, fostering dialogue and developing gas resources and the gas industry. President Maduro, on his part, entrusted the energy minister with conveying his greetings to the President of the Republic, emphasizing his willingness to develop cooperation relations with Algeria. Still in Venezuela, with the activities of the Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, who was received by the Venezuelan Minister of Petroleum and CEO of the national oil company, Pedro Rafael Telechea Ruiz. During this meeting, the two parties tackled the partnership relations in the energy sector and the ways to consolidate them. Both parties also discussed the fields of cooperation in training and experience exchange between Sonatrach and the Venezuelan oil company. The summit of gas exporting countries is being prepared in Algeria, and as Russia is also the second largest producer and exporter of natural gas in the world, Russian specialists speak of a particular situation for this highly demanded resource. Thus, the Algiers edition can be a turning point for the gas market. Najah Tayyar explains.
Russia, the world's largest country by area, is undoubtedly one of the world's most active players in the field of energy supply and is now focusing on optimal production to meet its growing demand for natural gas. Russia is the world's second largest producer and exporter of natural gas, holding the largest share of global reserves at 47 trillion cubic meters. And as a global demand for the natural gas continues to grow, Russia is focusing on optimizing its production. Nord Stream 1 has been reinforced by Nord Stream 2 to ensure the transport of 110 million cubic meters for the two pipelines. Russia is surprising its delivers with larger volumes of natural gas. The Russian economist Igor Shkov, an energy expert at the Russian government's University of Financial Sciences, congratulates for the increase in Russian gas exports thanks to the new markets in Asia, especially in China and India. In 2021, the volume of Russian gas exports was about 160 billion cubic meters. In 2023, this volume decreased to 28 million cubic meters. But Russia's reliance on a natural gas route via the North Pole as a second way to ensure a stable supply of natural gas is a way for Russia to distance itself from any geopolitical risk. Russia is an active member of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, and Algeria will host the 7th summit. It's time to strengthen the role of the GESF in order to control prices on regular supply to the market and thus avoiding high risks of inflation. The energy experts and analysts in Moscow affirm that the 7th summit of the Forum of Gas Exporting Countries is likely to strengthen the bilateral cooperation and partnership opportunities between the two countries that are giants in the field of natural gas. Russia, the world's leading producer and exporter of natural gas, and Algeria, Africa's leading producer of natural gas.
In other news, and on the occasion of the commemoration of the World Day for Social Justice, the National Council for Human Rights organized today a conference presided by its president, Abdelmajid Zalani, in the presence of the Minister of National Solidarity and the General Secretary of the Ministry of Interior, as well as Algeria's representative for the UN development programs. The Moroccans have once again showed their support to the Palestinian people victim of genocide. They also expressed their total rejection of normalization of the Makhzen regime and its relations with the Zionist entity. Yasin Hamdi with the details.
We will never give up on Palestine, no to normalization. These are some slogans of the Moroccan protesters who show their unconditional support to the Palestinian people, victim of a genocide perpetrated by the Zionist entity. The streets of Casablanca are full of crowds coming from the whole country to peacefully express their reject of the normalization with the Zionist entity.
مفتخرين بهذه الوقفة البيضاوية في برنوسيم مفتخرين بها ولكن كنقولوا أمام يعني
We are proud of this solidarity with our Palestinian brothers. We're here to denounce the genocide against the Palestinian people and humanity. We have to maintain our pressure, and we call the Moroccan regime to retract from the normalization with the Zionist entity and stop the military conventions signed lately.
في هذه الوقفة الاحتجاجية من أجل فلسطين، من أجل القدس، من أجل إيقاف هذه الإبادة.
I am here for Palestine, for Al-Quds. I'm calling for the stop of the genocide and the forced displacements of the Palestinians by the Zionist entity. As Moroccans, we stand by the side of Palestine and we denounce the silence of Arabs. This protest is part of an international solidarity operation. Just like in Casablanca, other gatherings are organized everywhere in the world to denounce the genocide in Gaza. We're taking part to an international initiative to denounce the massacres of innocent Palestinians. We also call for an immediate stop of the genocide against the Palestinian people. We raise our voices against the silence of the international institutions. The solidarity with the Palestinian people was expressed since the beginning of the savage attacks on Gaza and will continue in all over the world.
In the streets of Rabat, the Moroccan security forces violently repressed peaceful protests of health sector professionals who suffered a brutal police intervention, prohibiting them from demanding their basic rights, including the enhancement of their promotion conditions and wages increase. And with that, our today's news edition comes to a close. Thank you for tuning in and goodbye for now.